Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's second video, doing European Outlook for today's second video. So, as always on a Thursday, although we didn't do it last week because it's Christmas week, but as always on a Thursday, we're having a detailed look at the weather for the next week, 10 days for the UK and for the rest of Europe as well. And I shall get something back for you in a moment. Just say that the first video say was the 6 AM upload. And we've got a 10 to 14 there that will include all other regular features coming up to you later on this afternoon. Please like, share and subscribe on the videos. Thank you so much everybody for doing that. Right, so let's begin with the situation across Europe today. They've got cold air digging into the far north and northeast. We've got north-northeast winds bringing bitterly cold air out of the northwest of Russia into the far northeast Europe. There is an attempt at a Scandinavian high to get going as well over northern parts of Scandinavia. And this area of low pressure will be bringing, excuse me, a risk of rain sinking zone to these eastern parts of Europe. Western Europe, very different, much milder. Winds coming in off the Atlantic with high pressure through France, Spain, Portugal, and low pressure out to the west of Scotland. Here's the upper air temperature showing bitterly cold air covering much of Scandinavia and also northeast Europe around the Baltic Sea states, looking very cold through there. And those really cold conditions extend back into the northwest of Russia as well. Now, the south was pretty cool through these eastern parts of Europe. When we come further south still, and we pick up warm air through the Balkans and in towards the eastern part of the Med. In fact, most of the Med looking quite mild, as does much of Western Europe. Precipitation-wise, there's a lot of dry weather over Scandinavia, but because it's bitterly cold, any precipitation there will be falling as snow. They've got a mix of rain, sleet and snow through these eastern parts of Europe. And then going further south, it's mostly dry through the Mediterranean, much of the Balkans looking pretty dry as well. Up the western side of Europe, generally quite dry until we run into more wet and windy weather pushing in across Ireland and into Scotland. Some rain and snow into southern parts of Norway. Temperatures today look like that, so mild, very mild actually across western parts of Europe and through most of the Med, but bitterly cold air is across northern and also northeastern Europe. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll bring next area of low pressure in from off the Atlantic later on. That's going to be a deepening area of low in the Atlantic as well. The first area of low pressure today, if you like, is moving towards Norway and southern parts of Sweden as well. The attempt at the Scandinavian high is retreating, that bridge is retreating back into western parts of Russia. Otherwise, most parts of Europe under a ridge of high pressure looking mainly dry. Again, upper air temperatures bitterly cold across most parts of Scandinavia, but beginning to get a little bit less cold through southern parts of Norway and Sweden. Looking very cold again around the Baltic Sea states, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, looking really cold there, and into the western part of Russia too. Very cold air into Moscow by Friday, for example. No, south bow looking mostly mild across many parts of the Med and up west side of Europe as well. Precipitation-wise, we've got a band of snow moving into Scandinavia, introducing something slightly less cold into very far south of Norway and Sweden. That band of snow turning more towards rain and sleet as it pushes through Denmark, northern parts of Germany, and into northern parts of Poland. Further southwards of that, lots of dry weather really across Europe today. Or tomorrow, I should say, and in the far northeast, going to be mainly dry but bitterly cold. And then out to the west, we've got another band of wet and windy weather just beginning to approach in towards Ireland, and that will be dominating weather, of course, through west parts of Europe over the weekend. Temperatures very cold over Scandinavia and much of the far north and northeast of Europe once again, and into western parts of Russia, bitterly cold air through there. Meanwhile, further southwards, it's a lot milder through the Mediterranean and up west side of Europe once more. Saturday, we'll deepen our area of low pressure in the Atlantic, and we'll find weather systems sweeping in from off the Atlantic, taking milder southerly southwesterly winds into western north of Europe as the cold air begins to retreat away to the northeast. The upper air temperature still looking bitterly cold through northern parts of Scandinavia, but the cold air is retreating through southern Scandinavia, starting to retreat around some of the Baltic Sea states as well. The coldness will be retreating back into western parts of Russia. Push of very mild air through Spain, France, Portugal, into the Low Countries, Belgium, Holland, Netherlands, and also Denmark and Germany as well. Begins to go a little bit cooler for the UK and Ireland, but only talking about average sort of temperatures there. And then most parts of the Mediterranean looking quite warm with the upper air temperatures on Saturday. Wet and windy in west of Europe, so Portugal, northern parts of Spain, into northwestern France, Low Countries, up in towards southern parts of Norway, Sweden, and then back to the UK and Ireland. Wet and windy weather there. That rain will turn to snow as it bumps into cold air across Scandinavia. Of course, snow through northern and central parts of Sweden, extending over the Baltic Sea towards Finland, and then many other areas south and east of that looking mostly dry. A few showers through the central part of Med, not much, and much of Eastern Europe looking mainly dry. Well, on Saturday, very cold again in the extreme northeast of Europe, but because of it is beginning to retreat, particularly from southern parts of Scandinavia, turning milder across western parts of Europe. Sunday will bring say mild across western parts of Europe as it never really gets cold. Sunday will bring more low pressure into western Europe as well. Notice both southerly winds are extending further and further eastwards, taking the milder air with it, with them. So the coldest of the air across northern Scandinavia retreats away into northern western parts of Europe. Most parts of Europe actually looking generally mild as we go into Sunday. Plenty of wet, windy weather in Western Europe, gradually extending further eastwards, snow through northern parts of Scandinavia. Of course, much of Eastern Europe and the east part of Med looking mostly dry. There could be some very heavy showers and thunderstorms developing around the Côte d'Azur and into the central bowl of the Mediterranean on Sunday as well. Some of those storms beginning to affect Italy, and which may deliver a little bit of snow over the Alpine regions as well, where of course they have been struggling for snow recently. So notice how the coldest of the air is retreating back now into northern and northwestern parts of Russia. Most parts of Europe looking relatively mild on Sunday. Into Monday, early part of next week, we'll have low pressure across the northern and western part of Europe, milder southerly winds extending further into the eastern side of Europe, and high pressure beginning to get back into Spain and Portugal. Upper air temperatures being generally mild across all parts of Europe by this point, to be honest. Of course, still in the far north Scandinavia, for example, western Russia, it will still be cold due to it being sort of middle of January, but generally it's a mild scene in many parts of Europe on Monday, with showers or longer spells of rain and this wet weather gradually extending eastwards. Some heavy showers and storms may be getting going around the Balkans by the time we get to Monday, and back into Italy as well, generally around the Adriatic. It looks quite unsettled. Showers and longer spells of rain through France, extending further northwards, so that will turn to snow. Still cold enough for that across northern parts of Scandinavia. The temperatures are looking like that. So overall, it's a mild scene away from the extreme north and northeast Europe, where it will still be cold. Another push of very mild southwest winds with the next area of low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic into West Europe on Tuesday. So got another sort of pizza slice of mild into the west of Europe on Tuesday. A little bit colder perhaps in some of those far eastern and northeastern regions. Lots of heavy showers, thunderstorms and longer spells of rain in the east, especially into the eastern part of the Med. So Greece and Turkey by Tuesday could be seeing some big thunderstorms into southern parts of Italy as well. Maybe a risk of some snow and sleet around the Baltic Sea states, extending into northern parts of Scandinavia, but another batch of wet and windy weather sweeping in across the UK, Ireland, and some of that affecting France and the Low Countries as well on Tuesday. Cold in the far east of Europe, so east parts of Ukraine, for example, looking quite cold, extending up through the far northeast of Europe, looking quite cold through there. Maybe get a little bit colder through parts of Norway again on Tuesday, but most areas, especially in the west and the south of Europe, looking generally mild. Moving through to Wednesday, no change really. Low pressure continues to dominate, especially across the northern and western parts of Europe, so it remains generally mild in many parts of Europe, with both upper air temperatures on Wednesday, with further showers and longer spells of rain, long and strong winds sweeping in from off the Atlantic, affecting much of northern and west Europe. And we also have those heavy showers and thunderstorms in the east and southeast part of Europe, especially into the eastern bowl of the Med. Central and western parts of the Mediterranean looking a little bit drier, and we'll have some snow flurries in the extreme northeast of Europe, probably on Wednesday. Cold into the extreme east and northeast Europe, otherwise a mild scene. Moving through to Thursday, again it looks unsettled across most parts of Europe, but generally quite mild, with those upper air temperatures, no problems there. Showers or longer spells of rain affecting many areas. The driest weather is in like southern and southwestern parts of Europe, especially around Spain, Portugal, into the central bowl of the bed, and it remains cold in the extreme east and northeast Europe, otherwise generally quite mild, especially for those western parts of Europe and in the south too. And they're moving through to day 10, so I'll just moving through day 10, which is Friday next week, 13th of January, where the setup remains the same, really low pressure continuing in from off the Atlantic, and there's no real change, to be honest, up to the middle part of the month, which is Sunday 15th of January, day 10, looking unsettled with more wet, windy weather, especially out in the northwest Europe, but with winds coming from that southerly southwesterly direction, it will be remaining mild. So, very unsettled week to come, especially for western and northern parts of Europe. Lots of wind and rain on the way. Very cold across Scandinavia and the northeast of Europe at the moment. That cold air will start to retreat back into Russia by the weekend. And next week looking pretty mild across most parts of Europe. Well, that's this week's European Outlook. We'll do it all over again next Thursday. Going to be back shortly with your 10 to 14 down, so come back for that then. But for this week's European Outlook, that's all for now. And thanks for watching.